Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the meeting of the Board of Education of Howard County on December 17th, 2015. We're going to start today with Meghna from Reservoir High School leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, is she here? Oh, there she is. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to begin this session with public forum. The board looks forward to hearing constructive comments from a maximum of 5 citizens on educational issues at the beginning of each session of the regular meetings. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Topics excluded from public forum are any that are provided at a formal hearing process, such as a specific policy, budget, or boundary line proposal. Due to confidentiality requirements, a private appointment should be made with the superintendent and/or the chairman to discuss personnel issues. Due to limited time availability during the meeting, the board will not respond directly to the individual. However, each speaker appearing at public forum will receive a written response. The first person we have signed up this afternoon is Mr. David Floyd. Welcome.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Dr. Fuss and Ms. Weiss. My name is Dave Floyd, and I'm a technology teacher at Bellows Spring Elementary and Thunder Hill Elementary. I am here to testify about the overwhelming positive feedback from my students, staff, and parents on the use of Wixie in instruction. Wixie is a digital tool available for all elementary school staff and students, and I wanted to thank the Office of Instructional Technology and the Library Media and Board of Education for their support. You can see a selection of student work and You can see a selection of the teacher and student interface in Wixie as well as student work samples on the screens above. Wixie is a publishing and creativity platform that lets students share what they know through their art, their voice, and their writing. Using Wixie with Vision 2018 and helps students to achieve academic excellence in an inspiring, engaging, and supportive environment. Wixie allows students 24/7 access, and it personalizes learning through differentiation and individual student choice. Wixie enables our students to be future ready by transforming teaching and learning using the power of technology. Using Wixie is an important component in assisting our students to become responsible, engaged, and contributing digital citizens. As a technology teacher, I use Wixie in my classroom on a daily basis. Through the use of this tool, my students in grades K through 5 are able to express their creativity, innovation, problem solving, and critical thinking skills in all content areas. With a wide variety of templates and online resources available, I can adapt my instructional activities to best meet the needs of my students through differentiation. I can provide rigorous instruction that promotes students' depth of knowledge. The commenting feature allows for timely feedback about student progress to increase student achievement. Students can collaborate and share their work with their peers to enhance learning. Wixie uses sharing tools to facilitate better communication with families. Students can easily publish and share their work on a class blog or in Canvas. The ePortfolio tool enables students to share evidence of growth on their learning journey. When asked why they like Wixie, my second graders responded, "It's a great app because it has stickers and backgrounds, and you can do it at home. You can also do lots of fun things that you can't do with a regular piece of paper." Parents have also expressed their child's excitement when they share their projects with them at home. This is a powerful shift in digital teaching and learning. I have included additional quotes from Howard County teachers and students. I encourage you to read them when you have time. In conclusion, thank you for all that you do in supporting Wixie and other technology initiatives in our schools to ensure that all students are equipped with the technology skills they need to be positive digital citizens and successful in college careers and beyond. I welcome you to come and visit at any time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Floyd. It looks great.
Thank you. Bellows Springs and Thunder Hill.
Hill.
I'm split between the two.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have Vicki Contrino, yes. No? Okay, does anybody, okay, so we only had 2 signed up, and it appears that Mrs. Contrino isn't here. Would anyone else like to use this public time for the public forum? Okay, seeing no one, we're going to close public forum and move on to the approval of the agenda. Dr. Foose, are there any changes?
There is one change that I'm going to make. That would be under number 2, reports. I'm going to forego my report this evening for the sake of time. I have a lot of folks, just so we can move quicker into the agenda. And that is the only change.
Okay.
Okay, I'll move approval of the agenda with the change to item 2, reports.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the agenda by Mrs. Giles, excuse me, and a second by Dr. Siddiqui. Excuse me. All in favor? Okay, excuse me. Motion passes. Looked like 7-0, yes? Or 8-0?
8-0.
8-0, thank you very much. Okay, now we're going on to the student representative report from Reservoir High School. Yeah, it's kind of dark. Welcome, Reservoir. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Okay, Aiden, you get that chair right there. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for our annual board presentation. As many of you know, we at Reservoir are not the conventional SGA, and in this presentation, we'd like to take you on a trip to what we call Gator Nation. We'll focus on 2 questions. Who is the Reservoir SGA, and why do we love our school? I am Meghna Srinivas, and I have the honor and pleasure of serving as the Executive Board President of the Reservoir High School Student Government Association for the 2nd time in a row.
I am Lindsay Allen, First Vice President of Student Activities for the Student Government Association.
And I am Aiden Henry, Public Relations Officer of Alpha Achievers.
Before we begin, we'd like to thank our advisor, Ms. Beth Demers, as well as our principal, Mr. Patrick Saunderson, and our STEM coordinator and school improvement team leader, Mr. Dan Rosewag, for accompanying us with this presentation. With that said, let's get started.
Our first major event this school year was homecoming, and this year's theme was vacations. As always, the event was a huge success with over 700 dance tickets sold and lots of positive feedback from the staff and students. Why was this? Well, we had our daily fashion show and spirit challenge. We had our annual Powder Puff football game and our Swamp Fest carnival. And then we also had a new feature this year. We had a game room in the atrium, which consisted of ping pong, basketball, and foosball.
In addition to planning homecoming, we've accomplished several other things this year. We have enhanced our steering committee and public relations committee collaborations. We've also increased our use of social media through a couple different platforms, and we've also increased involvement in our school's improvement team and PTSA, as well as increased staff appreciation initiatives.
Our school has worked hard to improve students' overall engagement. We now have ping pong tables into our atrium area, which allows students to be active during lunch periods, as well as after school. We also started weekly trivia challenges during lunch, which results in free passes to sporting events.
As an organization, SGA has been focused on giving back to our school and the community. At General Assembly meetings, we bring clubs, SGA members, and sports leaders together for collaboration and training. We have also used the MASC-sponsored Maryland Leadership Workshops to create engaging activities.
Our school has also participated in various community service projects to assist those in need. Earlier this fall, we had our annual Pink Out for Breast Cancer football game, which raised over $5,000 for breast cancer awareness. The Triam Music Honor Society collected canned goods during the fall music concerts, and our annual peanut butter and jelly drive is in full swing.
We are so proud of our current success and the dedication of our student body, and look forward to the rest of the year and our new community service projects.
Now on to the accomplishments of our fabulous Fine Arts Department. Our marching band performed at the state championships. Several Reservoir Art students were featured at the Walters Museum. Miss Christine Long was honored at the HCPSS New Art Teacher of the Year, and our drama department had 4 great showings at the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee and is now casting for The Wizard of Oz.
On the field, our student athletes are performing well as well. With only 1 sports season completed, RHS already holds 2 regional championships in girls soccer and football, and we're looking forward to doing the same with our highly ranked basketball, wrestling, and track teams during this winter. We've also had a couple of milestones in our athletic programs. Our field hockey program won its first ever playoff game in history, and our cheerleaders competed at states for the first time ever.
Over 170 students were inducted into NHS this fall. 13 other honor societies are active at Reservoir. Over 700 students on honor roll each quarter with an average of 100 4.0s. 1 senior has been named National Merit Scholarship finalist this year. 376 students, over 744 AP exams last spring, and our average scores remained steady despite the increased enrollment. 13 students earned a perfect score of 800s on at least 1 section of the SAT last year.
Reservoir's STEM program has also grown to become one of the largest numbers in the state of Maryland. Our MESA team won 3rd place and the best overall documentation at the annual Pumpkin Chuckin' contest.
Lastly, we have several other RHS group accolades to share. Reservoir DECA won the state championship for the 13th straight year. Best Buddies held its first annual Disability Month Awareness Assembly. Save Club led our recertification as a green school. The RHS leadership cadre continues to partner with feeder schools through programs such as Alpha Buddies at Hammond Elementary and the Computer Science Club for females at Fulton Elementary.
One of the key components to our success is promotion. With our PR committee and famous videos, students are always aware of what is going on, and today we'd like to share a clip of one of our favorites created to honor our much-loved principal, Mr. Patrick Saunderson, aka P. Sondy. And this video also won the NASSP's National Principals Month video contest last year.
Not really his style, and they all got the same heartbeat, but his working overtime. Nothing in this world could ever bring him down, no. Yeah, he's the principal, and he is always around. And we say, I wish that I could be like P. Sondy, 'cause that P. Sondy is the coolest. I wish that I could be like P. Sondy, Mr. Saunderson.
We hope you enjoyed our video. We would like to thank each of you for having us here today. A special shout out to our administrators, advisors, clubs, PTSA, boosters, and of course, Dr. Renee Foos and the Board of Education.
We have a small token of our appreciation. Thank you again for all that you do for the students and communities of Howard County. Thank you.
And you can
very
also
much.
see our full video on YouTube if you're interested.
Oh,
There's more.
absolutely. That was great. Thank you very much. Before you leave, who did you say was here with you again today? Can you recognize them for us?
Yes.
And please stand.
So we have our principal, Mr. Pat Saunderson.
There he is, P. Sondy.
We have our SGA advisor, Miss Beth Demers. And our school improvement team leader, Mr. Dan Rosewag.
Thank you very much. When can we come play ping pong with you?
Anytime between 10:20 and 12:20.
have to keep that
every
in
day
mind.
during lunch.
That sounds like fun. Thank you very much. Anybody? Okay, moving on to the personnel agenda. Dr. Foos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, we've had a vacancy in the Office of Coordinator of Strategic Planning as a result of Karen Lasser's promotion. And I'm pleased to recommend to the board for the appointment to the Coordinator of Strategic Planning, Ms. Laurie Shropshire, who is currently a business and strategy organizational change leader and process improvement. Lori has a BS in speech communications with a minor in political science from North Dakota State University. She is also a Six Sigma Green Belt, and she has certification in Shinjitsu Gemba Kaizen. She holds certifications in project management methodology, change acceleration process, and lean. She is currently with Othello Partners in Ellicott City in the role of, she's the business strategy advisor, the organizational change leader, and process improvement expert. Prior to working for Othello Partners, she was the quality leadership process manager at Baxter Healthcare Corporation in Beltsville, Maryland. Just some other things that we've learned about her through the interview process. She lives here in Ellicott City. She has a husband and 2 sons who cannot be with her tonight. She grew up in North Dakota, and we're told she knows how to drive a combine. She has a black belt in Taekwondo, just in case things get out of hand here in the board office. And she spent time living in Jamaica and working in an orphanage there. So I'm pleased to recommend to the board the appointment of Laurie Shropshire to the Coordinator of Strategic Planning.
Ms. Giles?
I move that the board approve the administrative appointment of Laurie Shropshire from Business Strategy Organizational Change Leader Process Improvement Expert to Coordinator of Strategic Planning.
Second. Thank you. I have a motion by, oops, put this back on. Motion by Mrs. Giles, seconded by Dr. Siddiqui. All in favor?
You have to
You're
let
going to do the roll call with that. Sorry, getting
Mr.
ahead of
Lacy?
myself.
Ms. Valencourt? Ms. O'Connor?
Yes. Yes?
Ms. Giles?
Yes.
Dr. Altwager?
Yes.
Mrs. French?
Yes.
Dr. Siddiqui?
Yes.
7-0.
Congratulations. Welcome to the Howard County Public School System. Okay, obviously the motion passed 7-0. Okay, now, going on to the consent agenda restricted. Ms. DeLacy? Oh, wait a minute. Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Somebody was, I have Dr. Altwager on my call system here. Sorry, Dr. Altwager.
I would just like to pull A and B.
Pull A and B.
Right.
Okay.
Do you want me to move? Okay, I move approval of the consent agenda, absent items A and B.
Mr. Lacy?
Yes, I second. I mean,
Yes?
Yes.
I'm voting.
oh, I'm voting yes.
Okay, Ms. Valencourt? Yes. Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Giles?
Yes.
Dr. Altwager?
Yes.
Mrs. French?
Yes.
Dr. Siddiqui?
Yes.
7-0.
Okay. Okay. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mrs. Delaney, did you want to say something else? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going on. Best, did you wanted to pull out best bids and contracts, Dr. Altwager?
Yeah. I just have some questions. I'm a little confused about P4, Replacement Enterprise Resource Planning System.
Okay, Mr. Pindel's on his
Inventory
way out.
Management and Control.
Thank you, Mr. Pindell. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
I understand from the fact sheet that we had contracted with Workday Incorporated to replace the then legacy financial system with a new cloud-based enterprise resource program, our ERP system. And what I'm wondering is why, if we made that replacement and we knew we were replacing it, why we are now needing to spend $150,000 to contract with a company called Attain LLC to assist us with implementation, and why that contract is only through for the next 6 months for that kind of money.
Sure, be happy to answer that. What the board approved back in December was the implementation of Workday. So that is the system. We are currently in the midst of that implementation. The board also approved Meteorix performing as the implementer.
Speak into the mic, please.
It's not
Sure,
working.
sorry.
It doesn't seem as loud.
It is on.
So the board's approved that. Our plan originally was to use internal resources for the project management component. The staff in that role had to go out on an extended leave, so we do not have project management internal resources for that. In order to keep the project is scheduled to for the payroll piece, to payroll HR benefits to roll out in April of 2016, and then finance, all the finance modules in July 1st of 2016. In order to stay on that very aggressive schedule, we talked with Workday and with other entities in the area that are implementing Workday. So University of Maryland University College is implementing Workday at the same time as us. They're a little further along in that process. They had contracted with Attain to perform project management for them. They highly recommended their services in that role. They had a contract that allowed us to use those same very favorable terms that they had negotiated so that we could continue on the schedule for implementation.
And in terms of the term, their contract term, we follow their term. Their term expires this June, and then they included, and we want to take the same option of being able to extend it month to month depending on our need and how we are in progressing in the implementation.
And there's no way that we could replace the person that has been working on this instead of spending $150,000 for a contract that expires on June 30th, 2016? It seems like a tremendous amount of money for
Well,
a
again,
short-term
150
contract
the
for
150
something our own staff should be doing.
Well, they bring
Or
to the
could be
table a
doing.
level of expertise that we do not have currently in-house. So we do benefit from the experience that they bring. And the 150 is an estimate, so it's not guaranteed that we're going to spend 150. It could be 100. It may have to be more, depending on how the deployment goes.
And this was in the budget that we approved?
No, if we are bringing it to the board for approval.
And we
That's why
have
it's
these
coming to the
resources
board.
in our 2016 budget?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that the only P?
It is, well, for the next one is, thank you, Mrs. Davis and Mr. Pindell. But
Thank
the
you.
next one is the legal fees monthly report, and that's for Mrs. Lasser.
I just want to back up for a minute. Bess, Dr. Altwerger, we could certainly hire somebody and bring them in to do this work, but the amount of time, the folks that we have right now out on extended leave of absence, that's a personnel matter. They're going to come back to work. So we would be hiring an additional staff member to come in to do the work of people that we already have in place to do this work when they return from leave. So we'd be hiring somebody, paying them a salary and benefits that would far exceed probably what we've contracted to do. So the cost benefit of this is, right now, the best strategy moving forward, the best practice, the most financially sound thing to do is to use contract services. It's temporary. Once we have everything up and running and our folks are back, they will continue to manage this work. So if we hired somebody, that would be an extra person that we have on staff that we didn't budget for in our budget cycle last year.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Mrs. Valancourt had a question. Do you
Oh,
have a
I'm
question
sorry.
pertaining to that?
Yeah, can you just clarify, please? So for 6 months, it's $150,000, so that's $25,000 a month?
Up to.
Up to. So we have a person on staff who makes anything close to that?
We have several people in Workday that are right now on leave.
Several people?
Yes.
Oh,
And so
okay.
what we're doing is we're contracting with this organization to come in to keep the trains running on time.
Okay, so it's
We want
several
our
people?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Dr. Siddiqui, did you have a question about this topic too?
Just a comment, I would say that probably if we had to train someone else, it may run into the same amount of money or comparable, so.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Altwerger, moving on to the legal fees monthly report.
Right, yeah, this is concerning legal fees monthly report. And I continue to be, I have to say, absolutely amazed at how much we're spending on legal fees. In particular, this is just for 4 months of July through October. When we add it up, Jeffrey Crew Law has earned $70,756.98, which is more than one career teacher makes in a year. And I'm starting to feel that we need some kind of audit of our legal spending because it seems exorbitant to me. I mean, I know that it's expensive to contract for legal services, but these numbers are really exorbitant.
Year to date through October, the non-special education expenses are almost exactly where we were last year. We're within $1,000, so it's not unusual. This is the model that we've been using. Our special education expenses are actually under where they were last year at this time. So we're actually in a more favorable position year to date.
Well, I guess what I'm asking overall is what kind of oversight we have to the hourly, what we're being charged hourly for legal services. It seems that certain law firms are really being paid huge sums. And it's not just special ed, special education legal expenses. Actually, it's under non-special education legal expenses that the greatest amount of money is being spent. I know that a school system has to have legal services, that's obvious, and I also know that it's very expensive to contract for legal services, but I would like to be assured there's some kind of oversight to the number of hours being billed and whether we're getting for the amount of money that we're spending the services that we're intended to be receiving, and whether we're being charged or billed more than necessary. So I guess I'm proposing that we have some kind of maybe the audit committee or another committee or somebody, some department within the school system provide us with a report that on the oversight of these legal expenses.
Well, the oversight is obviously Ms. Lasser and myself, as well as the executive team. The board approved the hourly rate of these attorneys. They submit to us itemized bills that you're welcome to come in and look at, Dr. Altwerger. The board also approved the hourly rate, as does MABE, for all the attorneys that we contract to do business with.
I guess it's more about the billable hours, like how many hours they're billing us for, whether there are any unnecessary uses of legal services. And I could go and look at the numbers, but I think the public is entitled to some kind of report on, or some kind of audit on
Well, this is the
what we're
report.
spending on legal services.
This is the report, and a lot of times in those itemized bills, we're dealing with personnel matters and folks
Right.
are
Well,
named,
that-
and so
yeah.
that's why we summarize it in a report here.
Okay, maybe I'm the only one who thinks that over $70,000 in 4 months is not exorbitant, but I do.
Mrs. Valencourt, did you have something?
Yes, please, I agree, and I would like to suggest that when we eliminated in-house general counsel, we said we would at some point revisit whether that was a new, whether all outside contractors was a good model for us after some period of time, and I think that it's time for us to do that.
Okay.
So does somebody we need to make a motion that to have a review of whether we should return to an in-house general counsel model or put it on an agenda somewhere, or how would you handle that?
Okay, well, more discussion to Mrs. DeLacy was next on the list. Excuse me.
This is my third year on the board, and so I'd like to defer to people who have been on the board longer than me, which would be Mrs. French, Mrs. Giles, Dr. Siddiqui, and Mrs. Valencourt. Could you tell me, I'd like to hear from you, your opinion on this, please?
Mrs. French is next.
Well, this is not the appropriate time. On the agenda, it's approval of a bidder contract, and I am on, right?
Yes.
And so this is not the appropriate time to propose any other motions. The quarterly agenda would be a perfect opportunity to put something on the agenda to begin giving staff heads up to prepare a report and for us to plan when it should be on the agenda. So it's a viable discussion item.
Thank you, Mrs. French. Dr. Siddiqui?
Well, I think we asked for this report when Dr. Foose came on and made changes, and I think it's to compare with what we had had in the past and what I think I don't have all the data and numbers in front of me, but I think compared to what we were spending before, it's either, comparable or less than what we were spending before in terms of our legal services. But
Including a full-time salary.
Correct.
For three
including-
people. Three
Yeah.
people.
Okay.
So it's worth looking at.
Thank you.
No, I didn't get you, but go ahead.
Okay, as long as we're running the.
Yeah.
In the model where we had a general counsel on staff who was supported by a paralegal as well as another attorney, we still had contracts with outside attorneys on specialized items.
Absolutely.
General counsel only serves the needs of specific in-house kinds of issues, and we have always had to contract with other attorneys who, all of these are on the list approved by MABE, who agree to provide services at a reduced rate to members of LSA in the state of Maryland. Legal Services Association, which is part of MABE's services in support of boards across the county. And all of these attorneys are on that approved list who agree to offer us reduced services. And we have used these contractors over time, and the combination of in-house service and outside counsel actually ran higher than where we are right now. I mean, that's my recollection as well. It varies from year to year, but if you looked at it on a continuum over time, there are legal expenses to running a school system, which have to do with providing advice, not necessarily being in the courtroom, but providing expert advice on how to proceed in a certain matter, in making sure that we are following the letter of the law and the spirit of the law in executing decisions. So it's not simply about it is not about litigation. Some of these may involve litigation, but most of them involve advice in order to make sure that the actions we take protect our staff and our students and the fiduciary interests of the system.
Right, specialized advice.
Right, but I think it is certainly appropriate, as Mrs. French said, to look at this as an item on the quarterly agenda to assess where we are with this and where we want to go.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Giles. And Mrs. DeLacy?
Yes, this is just one last thing. I was just looking at this. I think that Mrs. Bressler's firm, what is the name of
Callahan, Bressler.
Yeah, they are actually costing us more than Mr. Cruz's firm. I don't know why his was singled out.
It depends on what we're using them for. Again, we use
It's a type
we
of
use the
case.
firm based on the situation. It's the service delivery model that is yielding the best results for us as a school system to keep us out of litigative situations or to make placements for students and non-public placements that we can otherwise provide the service for here. So it's a very specialized service delivery model that we've moved into.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Lasser. Okay. So do I have a motion
that
for the
we do
bids
at
and
the time
contracts
we
and
do the
legal
quarterly
fees?
agenda. What?
Oh,
That's
excuse me, ladies.
We address the quarterly agenda when the quarterly agenda comes
Well,
forward.
it came up last time, so.
It's a point of order.
Yes.
Okay, so, do I have a motion?
I'll move approval of items A and B on the consent agenda restricted.
Thank you. Oh, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Lacy?
Yes.
Ms. Valencourt?
No.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Giles?
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger?
No.
Mrs. French?
Yes.
Dr. Siddiqui?
Yes,
5-2.
it's a report.
Okay. Motion passes 5-2. Moving on to the consent
It was
agenda.
also the bids and contracts.
Excuse me, ladies, let's move on, please. Moving on to consent agenda consisting of donations, resolutions, meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Oh, do we
I
have
will
discussion?
second it.
Okay.
I
I'm sorry, Dr. Altwerger.
I
didn't
just want to pull
see up in here.
5C.
Are we at 5 yet?
Yeah, we're on number 5.
I thought we were doing a consent agenda.
So you want to pull
It is
the
a
meeting
consent
minutes?
agenda.
Yeah.
She
I
wants-
have some changes to the minutes.
Mr. Lacy?
I'd just like to pull A, please.
Okay. All right. Mrs. Giles, want to reframe that?
I will hold, to approve one thing seems kind of silly, so
Okay.
I'll just pull my motion and we'll go forward with discussion.
Okay. Mr. Eastham, I saw him somewhere. There we go. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Frank.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I know this is redundant, but I feel it's worth saying. I'd like you to again look at the donations and see if what we can do to ensure that we're not providing separate and unequal education for our students based on donations. I'd just like to say again that if one school is going to be at an advantage over what various donations they can get, I believe that it's the school system should spend the same amount of money on other schools that couldn't afford it. I just want to go on record as repeatedly saying that because I think it's unfair.
Go on to C.
Okay, moving on to C. Thank you, Mr. Eastham and Mr. Lacy. Meeting minutes. That would be just us. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Altwerger.
Okay, there are two edits that I'd like to make on the minutes that indicate that we had asked, first one is that we had a discussion.
Page and what line?
I'm sorry?
Page and line.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's page 2, and it has to do with the 2016 January through March quarterly agenda. It is my recollection that at our meeting last time, we agreed that we would ask for an oral report on the suspension data to be presented to us sometime during the next quarterly agenda. And I don't see it reflected here unless I missed it. Kathy wants to say something.
Please, Mrs. Hanks.
The motion did not include, that was just direction that was given to me, and all that's recorded in the minutes is the actual action, the actual motion. The video is the official minutes, and the summary only records the actual motions that were made. So there was no motion adding a suspension report. It was just the board was directing me to add that to the quarterly agenda.
And can we have that in the minutes at least, that we directed staff to try to
We don't,
include?
the board changed how we do our minutes, that we just have this summary with the motion. If the board wants to go back to how we used to do the minutes, we'll certainly do that, but we're just following the direction of the board at this time.
I just, am disappointed to see that there is no documentation of the fact that we had asked for an oral report on the suspension data, and therefore it could get lost somewhere. And I'm concerned about that.
Go ahead, Mrs. Giles.
It's unlikely someone's going to go watch the video to see that we said that.
It is documented in the recording, and Mrs. Hanks added it as a bullet item to the quarterly agenda so that it will need to be scheduled based on discussion with staff to see when that might come forward. So it has become part of the bulleted quarterly agenda to then be scheduled. That's what happens when you direct someone to put it on. It becomes a bullet, and then it gets scheduled when it's available. So it is documented in the quarterly agenda. That is the active one under review now in order to be scheduled later. So it is, that's the result, and that's the documentation. It becomes a bulleted item to be scheduled when available.
Okay. Dr. Siddiqui? Thank you.
I was just going to say, yeah, the document was approved with those changes.
Okay, so
Thank
that, you're
Mrs.
saying
Valencourt-
that, oh, I'm sorry.
Did you have a question for Mrs. Hanks, because Mrs. Valencourt was next? Did you have a question for Mrs. Hanks?
I guess my question is, was it added as a bullet to the quarterly agenda? It was.
Mrs. Valencourt?
Okay.
Yes?
Just for
Okay.
clarification.
All right, thank you.
We voted on approving the quarterly agenda, so that vote is in the minutes. And the quarterly agenda is available for people to see, updated with whatever direction there was. So, I mean, I think it
exists.
It's hard, it will be difficult for somebody to just sort of stumble upon it, but it's there. And you should have seen, I don't know, if you should have seen the way the minutes used to be.
You don't want to go back.
I mean, they'd be pages and pages, and
Okay. Took your
nobody
word on
read
that.
those either.
Thank you, Mrs. Valencourt. Okay, Ms. DeLacy?
Yes. Bess, I just wanted to add to that. We used to have so many discussions about the minutes. They would be pages and pages long. If people didn't want a certain word or whatever that was recorded in the minutes, there would be a huge argument about remove this word and add this word. And so we decided that instead of having these voluminous minutes, that we would have the recordings which are there for everyone to see. So we're not trying to obscure anything. We're not trying to hide anything. We're not trying to sweep anything under the rug. It just became so massive that we thought, okay, you can always click on the board docs and view the minutes, view the meeting, and click on whatever item you want to view and see that segment only. But there's no attempt in any way to hide or for there to be a lack of transparency.
Yeah,
Thank you,
I
Ms.
wasn't
DeLacy.
implying that, Ann. What I'm worried about is I just want to make sure that oral report gets on our agenda. That's all I was concerned about.
Okay. Thank you. Mrs. French?
I've just always found it very helpful to keep a tickler file and just stick a note in there, the date, when this was requested, and then it's there as a personal reminder because certain things are big issues to certain people. And it's our responsibility to monitor and to follow up. And it doesn't have to be at a public meeting. It can just be a private phone call to Kathy Hanks, and she's always on top of things, believe me. And she can always find something within 3 seconds and say, oh, yes, here it is, and the date and the place. Here's the link. So.
Good point. Thank you very much, Mrs. French. Okay, Mrs. Giles?
Well, I think our discussion is complete, so I will move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. We have a...
Ms. DeLacy?
Yes.
Ms. Valencourt?
Yes.
Ms. Lynn?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Giles?
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger?
Yes.
Mrs. French?
Yes.
Dr. Siddiqui?
Yes.
8-0.
Okay, motion passes 8-0. Thank you very much. Moving on to the administrative agenda. Proclamation designating January 2016 as Maryland Reading Month. The BOE Legislative Committee Charter and Protocols, and the class size report. Do I have a volunteer to read the proclamation? Ms. Lynn, thank you.
The Board of Education of Howard County proclamation designating January 2016 as Maryland Reading Month. Whereas the school system is firmly committed to the promotion of reading as the foundation for students' academic success, their preparation for jobs of the future, and their ability to compete in a global economy, and whereas Howard County's reading teachers, classroom teachers, and reading specialists have dedicated themselves to providing quality reading instructions to all students, and whereas any investment of time, talent, or resources in literacy is an investment in the overall health and well-being of our community, and whereas the state of Maryland has designated January as Maryland Reading Month as a way to encourage reading, community involvement in education, and the engagement of families in literacy activities, and whereas the educators of the Howard County Public School System concur with the words of the late poet Maya Angelou, who declared that any book that helps a child to form a habit of reading, to make reading one of his deep and continuing needs, is good for him. Therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of Education of Howard County enthusiastically endorses the designation of January 2016 as Maryland Reading Month. And be it further proclaimed that the Board of Education of Howard County invites the community to engage in literacy programs and activities to make Howard County's children the best readers in the world. So I move the approval of the proclamation designating January 2016 as Maryland Reading Month.
I second.
Motion by Ms. Lynn, seconded by Dr. Altwerger.
Ms. DeLacy?
Yes.
Ms. Valencourt?
Yes.
Ms. Lynn?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mrs. Giles?
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger?
Yes.
Mrs. French?
Yes.
Dr. Siddiqui?
Yes.
8-0.
Motion passes 8-0. Thank you very much. BOE Legislative Committee Charter and Protocols. Mrs. Lasser, welcome back to the podium here. Okay, here it is.
Oh, I keep wanting to put things on his shelf. We're returning to,
It's not on.
it's not on. There's a red light, is it a green light?
That's better.
Okay, thank you. We're returning to the tabled charter and protocols from the board's legislative committee from several weeks ago. And you had in your packet the revised documentation. What changed was at the very end, in the very last section where there were questions about testimony. And again, as a reminder, the combined document that you're looking at is replacing 3 different documents: the board's charter and the board's protocols, which were in 2 separate documents. The legislative committee's charter and protocol were in 2 separate documents, and they were not in alignment with Policy 2000, nor were they in alignment with the handbook. So all of the changes were bringing everything into alignment, and this work was done at the board's legislative committee. The question came up about testimony and a board member's right to testify as an individual, whether they agreed with the board's collective position. And a board member has the authority to testify as an individual, but they should be stating that they are doing so as an individual, that they are taking a position that differs from the board's collective and joint decision-making if they do so. So that's what the language is, and the language, again, is out of existing language from the board's handbook and existing charter and protocols.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? I don't see anybody on my, oh, Mrs. French?
I move adoption of the Legislative Committee's revised charter and protocols effective immediately, and that previous documents be retired completely. That was the confusion. We had old documents floating around.
Second. Dr. Allworker, did you have a question? Because your name popped up.
I'm wondering if, it does say somewhere in here that once we approve a legislative platform, that it be made public. But I'm wondering if, in order to get some public input prior to our voting on a legislative platform, that the proposed legislative platform be posted publicly as well, so that if citizens want to have some input before we make a decision, that would be possible.
Well, we completed the approval of the board's platform at the last meeting, and it was available on board docs in draft form, the same way all documents are. So we did approve the platform during a public meeting, and because it was available on board docs, there was the opportunity for people to comment and send an email to board members if they had any suggestions. So we've voted upon the platform and discussed it at length at our December 3rd meeting.
And how long was it on board docs before our meeting?
I suppose the usual amount of time before any board meeting, which is several days. I mean, 2 days plus, depending on.
Okay. Dr. Siddiqui?
I was going to make a suggestion because, I don't know, last January, at our board retreat, we formed subcommittees that looked at different objectives for the board, and there was a board committee that was looking at the charters for all the board committees. So I would make the recommendation after approval of this that the other policy and the audit committee maybe take, what the subcommittee had formulated and maybe update their own charters and bring it forward to the board. So that's not to close that chapter.
Okay, good. Thank you. Dr. Siddiqui. Mrs. Melancourt?
Just to clarify, the public forum, it would be permissible for a citizen to come and give us their opinion on a legislative proposal then. That would be something that would be it's not provided a forum. So that would be a place where somebody who happened to be watching could come. The interesting part that having been through this a couple of times, sometimes the proposals start like in a few weeks, they're going to start flying at us.
Yes.
And
There's not time.
there's just not time to do a whole lot. And the people who are paying attention to legislation in the community, I think are hopefully aware of how to
Make their positions
look it
known.
up. But, and then if they want, as long as we make it clear that maybe we should put something on it that you can come into public forum for comment. Because I can see that somebody may not sure if that's an okay thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. French, and then Mrs. DeLacy.
Basically, this platform imitates and expands upon MABE's platform I am on. And it's almost the same word for word every year. The only thing is we update some language or something that already happened legislatively, we then take out of the rationale. If other organizations would be free to allow us to comment on their legislative platforms, I would be willing to consider a quid pro quo. But we never see PTA Council, we never see HCEA, we never see any other organizations' legislative platforms. They're not shared with us even after they're approved. So we have to look out for what is best for the children and the efficient and effective running of the school system, at least our belief. And that's what I think this platform does.
Thank you, Mrs. French. Ms. DeLacy?
Yes, just Mrs. Valancourt did ask me to say something in preface to this comment that I'm going to make. First of all, we do disagree with MABE from time to time. And I was surprised that the people who've been on the board longer than me didn't say this, but this is the Howard County Public Schools legislative platform. And we, as Mrs. French said, we are in concert for the most part with MABE. So our charge is directed toward students that are public education students in Howard County in the state of Maryland and the school systems that we represent. These are not open to input from other groups who would like to, in some way, defer from that perspective. We're dedicated to the students and public education in Howard County and the state of Maryland.
Thank you, Mrs. DeLacy. Dr. Altwerker?
Well, I understand that as legislation is introduced, it's very quick turnover. I was really referring to the legislative platform, like the one that we voted on I think it was last time. I am simply proposing that the proposed legislative platform be posted publicly for public comment a certain amount of time, 2 weeks, let's say, before we are set to vote on it, so that anyone in the public, any of our constituents can come to the meeting and testify or submit written testimony about our legislative platform. I don't expect us to be able to pause each time we have to make a very quick decision on a particular piece of legislation. But we have a legislative platform that I think people deserve to see, and we should be hearing what our constituents have to say about it before we vote. I think we need to consider everything and then take a vote on it. I felt that way with the last vote.
Can I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The platform can't be presented to the public until it's been presented to the board. So what we could say is that it's presented in a report at the board, and we wait till the next meeting before we vote on it.
That's a great solution.
But that could then delay where we are in being able to then deliver it to our delegates in order to help inform what's going. But that's something we could look at it. But you cannot post something that is the board before it's been presented to the board. So, I mean, that's Governance 101.
Mrs. French, would you like to keep your motion on the table?
Absolutely, and I think we could just take this under advisement for future platforms.
So is there any further discussion?
Oh, so I was going to say, this would be
Okay.
for next year, so
Yeah.
we'll look
Okay,
at it.
great. So we have a motion on the floor from Mrs. French, and it was seconded by Mrs. Giles, and in the absence of Mrs. Hanks, Dr. Foose can go ahead and call the mode thing.
Ms. DeLacy? Yes. Ms. Valencourt?
Yes.
Ms. Lynn?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connor?
Yes.
Ms. Giles?
Yes.
Dr. Altwerger?
Yes.
Mrs. French?
Yes.
Dr. Siddiqui?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-0.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Foose. Excuse the tickle in my throat. Okay, now we are on to the class, thank you, Mrs. Lasser. Class size report. Mr. Eastham, welcome back.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education, as well as Dr. Foose. I am pleased to present the class size report for the 2015-16 school year. Staffing is a year-long process. In September, the Office of School Planning provides the Budget Office with enrollment projections used to build the upcoming budget. Using the enrollment projections and staffing formulas, the Office of School Administration provides all instructional departments and administrative directors with the number of staff positions needed for the upcoming budget. In February, the Office of School Planning provides updated enrollment projections, and the Office of Administration uses these projections to determine the number of positions that each school will receive. In March, the administrative directors meet with each principal to review the proposed use of staffing allocations. Throughout the spring and summer, the Office of School Administration closely monitors school enrollment and adjusts staffing as needed. In August and September, the Office of School Administration meets weekly to review the enrollment at each school and determine if schools are staffed appropriately. Once the year begins, for students, every effort is made to avoid reducing staff in any school to minimize disruption to students and school programs. In our elementary schools, class sizes have remained relatively consistent from year to year. This year, our average class size in kindergarten is 20.6. Our average class size in grades 1 and 2 is 20.2. And our average class size in grades 3, 4, and 5 is 25.1. And these are well within the student ratios that are approved by the Board of Education. In middle school, our average class sizes remain consistent across all middle schools, with school averages ranging from 21.5 to 23.1, with a countywide average of 22.4. In high school, the priority for smaller class sizes in assessed classes and in ninth grade English and mathematics classes continues to be maintained. Our average class size for English 9 is 22.6. Our average class size for English 10 is 23.2. And our average class size for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 is 23.4. District-wide, we have one core class and one non-core class that contains more than 33 students. One core class is a section of English 12 Honors at River Hill High School, which was increased to 34 due to an unavoidable scheduling conflict, as well as one non-core class, Principles of Engineering, at Marriott's Ridge High School, which was also increased to 34 to avoid an unavoidable scheduling conflict. If you have any questions, the director team will take those at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Eastham. Mr. Lacy.
As a related arts teacher, I was always dismayed, and I know I hear from teachers now and in related arts at the middle school level and the high school level. These are not art and elementary. These are not core classes, but they're classes. So what are the sizes of related arts classes at the middle school, elementary, and high school level?
We don't capture those for this report, but I will say at high school, those classes are capped at 33 as well.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I just know that from time to time in my foods class, I would have sometimes 36 and 37 students, and I want to know at the middle schools because there's a serious problem when you have too many students in a class. So it would be always nice to hear, oh, you know, you've got 25 kids in a class, but then you're a related arts teacher, you're teaching food nutrition, facts or physical education or art or music or band or strings or whatever else, and your classes are much larger. And so I would appreciate it very, very much if you would capture that information, because I think it's extremely important. Because those students, in fact, I was just someplace today where people remembered me teaching them in middle school in my classes, and I think that we teach as much as in the core classes. Certainly they're not tested necessarily, but I think it's unfair not to have those classes
I can look at
captured.
I can look at those class sizes and make sure that they are reasonable.
Okay. I'd just like to know the numbers in the various schools, please.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Lacy. Dr. Allweger.
sometimes averages can be deceiving, not intentionally, but they can mask some problems. And even though our, let's say, overall, we've kept class sizes comparatively level, when you look at the data for individual schools, it's actually kind of alarming. For example, in kindergarten, I went through each one of these grades in elementary school, and I have some also for middle school, but in kindergarten, where we have fewer paras now, 46% of the schools saw an increase in class size. First grade, 41%, second grade, 41%, third grade, 61%, fourth grade, 61%, fifth grade, 56% of the schools saw increases. Some were small, but some were quite large, like 5 kids, an average of 5 more kids per class, 4 more kids per class. I know sometimes, I'm realistic enough to know that sometimes these things might not be avoidable, but they're things that we made a pledge to the public that we would not increase class sizes. And overall, we haven't. But we have to be careful not to mask the increases in some schools. What's particularly concerning to me is that some of these schools are Title I schools or model elementary schools, and I understand that we may have some more support staff that come in and help. Right. But I would like us to move toward understanding that class size is a matter of equity. And when we set class size limits, we should be including in our thinking various criteria like inclusion. How many kids teachers are being asked to manage that have very special needs? The ELL population, the farm percentage, how many newcomers? Like, for example, I've understood from various teachers that they feel a little bit overwhelmed with the movement of the newcomer program. It's now dispersed amongst the high schools, and there are teachers that are trying to cope with kids who are at level 1 in terms of English, and that's very difficult. And then I think we need to have we need to make sure that we are providing equitable services to Title I schools. To me, that means a smaller class size. So I know that we're trying to, we're making efforts, but I think we need to do better. And I think this is something that really is very serious, and we need to discuss on the board to make sure that as we go through the budget season, that we keep in mind making sure that class size really does have a priority for us, so that we can make sure we have equity across the system. Not equal, equity. It's different.
We agree that class size is very important. Those factors are examined each year. And in our Title I schools, we do have staff that they're not represented in this report, additional staff members.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. And I also don't want you to think that my comments are directed to you personally, but I know you're the you're giving the report. I guess it's a concern I want to express to my fellow board members. Absolutely. Thanks.
Mrs. Valancourt?
Hi. Is there a companion piece to this that indicates what let's say, Forest Ridge, where it has the average for the 5th grade is 29.6. An average makes me think that, okay, there's some classes that might be fewer than that, and there are some that might be more than that. So is there a breakdown of what the different classes in a school, what they have in them? Because I get calls, and mostly from the people I think who have counted, and my son's class has 32 kids in it, which would be not necessarily represented on this report, because it would be part of the average. Is there a companion piece to this that that outlines that?
We monitor those numbers for individual classes when we are preparing the report, and we use those individual class size numbers to determine if we need to add any additional staff to those schools. As we know, students don't come necessarily in neat packages of 10, and so in order to maintain appropriate staff with the budget that we have, when multiple classes are nearing those upper limits, that's when we decide whether to include additional staff for that school.
Yeah. I understand that's what we do. Can we see what those numbers are for the individual classrooms?
Well, they change.
Well, yeah.
They change throughout the year, every week.
Okay, let me
sometimes.
just, the ideal thing for me would be a column that had a range, that in this school, the fifth grade has between 27 and 32 students in their classes. That would be very helpful information to me. The, the across the board average, it's a number, it's a significant number, it's an important number, it's probably one we report somewhere. But if your particular school experienced all the growth and, your kids' classes are crowded, then that average number doesn't really make a lot of difference to you. And I think that in order for us to make good decisions, we have to be aware of the distribution as much as, and I think this chart does a great job of that. I just like to see where the whole range is, especially if the 27, 29. And it's not part of this report, but the class size is one thing, but the support staff that's helped service those and the reductions that we've had in those, as Dr. Altwerger pointed out, it's a whole different ballgame to manage a class of 32, typically developing students who are all on grade level, than it is to manage a class that has, 30 kids where 4 of them have IEPs and 2 of them have 504s, and, everybody, we all know this,
Sure.
but we don't really have a way, looking at this chart, to really include that in the sort of mental calculation of how are we doing providing reasonable class sizes with reasonable supports in them. If you have any thoughts on how we could add a column,
I can examine the feasibility of that.
I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your report, and thank you, Dr. Foos, for not making any recommendations of increasing class size. I know Frederick County last year in their budget had to decrease class size by 1 student, K through 12. So we're in a very fortunate situation. This report is class size, and that's just one moment in time. There's so many other things that go into the classroom. Our highly qualified teachers, the professional development, programmatic changes, contingent learning, so many things that can impact the classroom besides just the class size. The research certainly supports in pre-K through grade 3 the value of class size, as well as for minority students and our students that have achievement gaps. But I'm really pleased that we're not looking at increasing at this point, and continue to look at ways to eliminate those gaps with the resources that we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. French? This is a big budget issue, obviously. And way back when the board approved full-day kindergarten and set the class size, we were lobbied heavily to go with what was for first and second grade, which was 19-1. And we just couldn't afford it. And so my goal has always been, in the back of my mind with every budget session, well, maybe this year it's different. Maybe this year we can get the class size for kindergarten to where I think it should be, which is 19. It doesn't look much better since we're being told we have to be realistic. I censor all the rest of my thoughts. And I will continue with the pool positions. Are they reflected here? Because this is as of September 30th. So were all the pool positions applied before September 30th?
No, the pool positions are applied as the year progresses to address enrollment changes throughout the year.
Have they been applied since? Are they all, is the pool empty?
The pool is not empty at this time. It's close to being empty, but we do have a few positions remaining in the pool.
The problem, one could say, oh, good, we have a position, let's put them into this school. The problem is disruption. And the affinity or the affection, whatever, the wonderful charisma that happens between the teacher and the student and the parent. And it just gets so disruptive just because we think it'd be good to add another teacher at this point. I just wanted, my goal personally is if you could at least say for kindergarten, an upper range of 23 students. I mean, 24 is almost, that's not fair, I believe, because they're already at a disadvantage compared to first and second grade. And so I don't know how that would change your numbers for what you would need for next year. This is just me talking. We added the one para because we originally said, well, for 2 classrooms of 22, there would be one para. And so now the para is assumed or subsumed into the whole school population, and it's up to the principal now how to allocate. I have been hearing from school to school of my cluster that that's a real difficult thing to do. That the allocation, the way it's being done, just, it isn't people-friendly. So I don't know, this is why, Mr. Lerner, Mr. Morris, you have the fun job, not me. I'm just expressing that I see this as a real issue with my cluster schools. But I must say that you have been paying attention to a number of our needy schools. I'm just concentrating on kindergarten right now. Guilford has been reduced from an average of 22.5 to 17.3. Now, maybe that's because the new group of students who moved in is a lot smaller, but you did not take away a teacher. You kept the 4 teachers there, and I think that makes a big difference. The morale in that school is just fantastic, and they are cooperating with their new principal, and it just seems like a happy place to be. Laurel Woods, same thing, 21 to 3.3, and their class size in kindergarten is down now to 19.5. Running Brook, 19 down to 18.8. But if we can just keep, as Ms. Altwerger said, looking at our schools that are our Title I schools and our elementary school model schools, and if there's a tipping point somewhere, give them that extra staff position, because we want them to be successful. And it is an equity issue, absolutely. My one last comment is, what's happening in 3rd grade? That was a huge jump in an average. Is it because of the way the principals are allocating their staff? With the average jumping from 23.9 to 25.3. That seems a much larger jump. And 3rd grade is a very difficult transitional year educationally for students because they go from being nurtured and loved and supported to, okay, kids, now start trying to do things on your own, time to grow up and do homework and all of that. And so I'm wondering if the larger class size in 3rd grade is really the wise way to go. And of course, I don't have these horrible decisions to make. But I just have to point out my reactions when I saw this report. So thank you very much. If you want to comment on anything, feel free. Tell me where I'm off base. I'll listen.
No, it's not that you're off base. I think that's a good point that you see that third grade number, and you're absolutely right. Third grade is an important year. I would say that it's more of a statistical blip than a trend. It's just as each grade level comes on through, depending upon the number of students at a particular grade in a particular school, you're going to have a little larger or smaller class sizes. It just happens to be that this group of third graders, just with the way the numbers are at the schools, at some schools you have 26 or 27. If you add another teacher, it'd be down to 19 or 18, which is just not enough. So when you look at adding an additional teacher, it would move them too far down.
Whatever happened, okay, truth, I am old. My boys are mature young men, getting older men, and they had, in Howard County schools, they had classes all the way through elementary school of 32. And that's one reason why I ran for the board, obviously. This class size was one of my mountains I'm willing to die on. But it just seems to me that we can do better. I don't know. Sorry.
Okay, Ms. Giles?
Yeah, I would point out that one of the things that definitely has...
Microphone.
Oh, sorry. Eventually, these buttons will all start to make sense. I'd say one of the things that impedes the equitable distribution of this sometimes is physical size. Especially kindergarten classes have to be used certain specific space that's not the same as 1 and 2. I mean, some of that, and as a class comes through and changes, we just can't go to a 7th classroom. It's not possible. And so you try and look at ways in which you can make that work. I do agree that people don't always understand how that happens, where the tip is that just because we got to enough students may not be physically able to be accommodated given the way the school is configured at the other grades and where we are. And that's why we start looking not just at overall numbers, but the impact on the delivery when we look at redistricting or options for additional space. So Laurel Woods can well have benefited from the fact that they got an addition, which made it possible to divide up a number of children that were increasing into more classrooms than we had available for our use before. And those are all things that have to be considered as we do this. But I also agree with Dr. Altwerger that we need to find ways in which to help people understand that the class size is impacted by the supports that are provided. So where we may set a base number for how staffing is going to be for this overall class, there are many classes because of supports in place, especially at our schools that have more needy populations, where the general ed teacher may only be working with a group of 10 or 12 at any given time because of the ways in which we've structured the way in which those services can be targeted, and so the impact for those children is of a smaller class size. And it's a difficult thing to show in a chart, but I think we need to think about how we talk about that. I also am hopeful that in kindergarten, in the schools where we have the elementary model and even before the elementary model with mandatory pre-kindergarten for students who need extra needs, that the burden in kindergarten has been relieved in a way because we're bringing in children who are additionally prepared to hit the ground running in kindergarten. So some of the pieces that might have pulled a kindergarten teacher away from meeting the needs of the class as a whole have in some ways been adjusted because we've been able to intervene earlier and help to set those that path of learning in place a little bit earlier. So it might be good to look at what we're seeing as evidence there and how that's impacting on how the classes are operating. But I think we do need to have some way of making sure that not just the base level staffing for the classes in a school are reported, but find a way to report what else is in place in order to make that work, whether that's reading specialists, whether that's ESOL specialists, whether it's one-on-one for special ed. Try to find a way to look at what kind of impact is that having, maybe with a series of symbols or additional tables that help us get a sense of what that looks like. So if we're looking at an average class size of 21.5 and we're seeing that some of that is at 17 and some of that is at 25, what kinds of additional supports are coming into those classrooms to help provide equity, to make the adjustments in order to make it work, and so that you get a more, not just at the base level, but what's actually happening in the delivery of instruction.
And I would like to say that the meetings that are held in March with each principal, the directors sit down individually for about 30 minutes with each principal to ensure that they are planning their schedule in a way that meets the needs of their students. And then the administrative directors also meet with the principals at the beginning of the year as they are beginning to implement their school improvement plans to make sure there aren't any adjustments that need to be made and to make sure the supports that have been allocated are used effectively so that the classrooms that need additional support have that support in place. We have a part of that in our school improvement planning process that we call school planning and structures that we look at.
I also think, as Mrs. French noted, we can't underestimate how valuable it is that we keep the pool so that as adjustments happen.
Absolutely.
But also, we don't, if in schools that are highly transient, we don't, if in December it looks like we don't just say, oh, we can pull somebody out of here and change it. We recognize that we want to maintain continuity, and you don't want to have the students going through more transitions than are necessary. And so that balance of trying to make sure we're keeping it where it is so that the beginning relationships are established and strengthened over the course of the year to the benefit of the child, but that we're keeping an eye on where we might have now hit a tipping point and we really need to see what we're doing. Or maybe we didn't hit a tipping point, but we need to put additional supports in place in some of those classrooms. It's just very hard to show that because it becomes so individualized on each of those pieces, but maybe if we could explore a way to help get an idea of what that looks like and why we believe that this is still overall is providing the appropriate balance to make sure that supports and are there for instruction to be maximized for the students wherever they happen to be in the county.
So we'll look into a way of noting that support.
Thanks. Ms. DeLacy?
Yes. I would like to remind my colleagues, as people have reminded me when I'm giving reports, that you are careful of the words you use. Needy, underserved, not ready. Those are words that are hurtful and are poverty models. And I would like for you to be very mindful of how you use them, number one, because their parents and these children and other people in our communities, including real estate agents, people who look to district and to move into various school areas, are listening to our words. So yes, there may be poverty, but that doesn't necessarily mean needy. Number one. Number two, I'd like to point out some of the very low numbers of schools. That would be, I'm looking at Clarksville Elementary, class size 16.3. I'm looking at Gorman Crossing. Is it Gorman Crossing? No, they're 20. Guilford, 17.3. I'm looking at West Friendship, which is 18.3. So the class sizes are not, and then I'm looking at Talbot Springs, of course, where I volunteer, which is 18.0. So there are a lot of different schools, and not just based on I know people are looking kind of shocked or confused, but I think we need to be very careful of what we say about students and about where they live and about their readiness. Number three, as you know, I volunteer Mrs. Mays' class at Talbot Springs, and it is a pre-K class. She has 20 kids in her pre-K class at Talbot Springs, and I think that we need to also, I know that they're not counted in the numbers necessarily, but they're counted in the classrooms. And when we're thinking about, I know that at Talbot Springs and Stevens Forest, it would be very beneficial in those schools specifically to ensure that we have a special education teacher allocated for each of those schools and not that they should not be shared between the two schools. Why is that? Because the children who are coming at an earlier age are coming, in many cases, as they do every place, with disabilities. And to have a child who's extremely disruptive and not necessarily ready for all-day pre-K at that time can be extremely disruptive to the child's learning and to the learning of the children in the other, in that classroom. One other thing, another teacher that I find to be, really her classroom should be a laboratory classroom, would be Miss Julia Adams at the school, Northfield. Exceptional teacher. She has a full classroom of students, but she has organized her class in such a way that, yes, it's a lot of the kids are affluent there, but she has structured it. She does not have an assistant in that classroom, but her management style is such that I think it would be great if other people would observe her classroom and watch how she manages it, because I think that organizing a classroom and having the skills to deliver instruction in a very different kind of manner would be beneficial for other people as well. And so I'd just like to say that I'd like, number one, us to be careful about how we're referring to children in schools. Number two, think out of the box when it comes to delivering the services and what we need in the various schools. And thank you so much for what you do.
You're welcome.
Yes, so I wanted to mention how students are affected by large class sizes. With many students in one classroom, some students can fall through the cracks, so they are a lot of students in the class. The teacher might not be able to focus on every student, and then some students might not be able to participate in the classroom discussions because they might not feel comfortable to raise their hand and ask for help, or they are shy and they don't want to be put out in front of their entire classroom if it has a lot of students. And with the teachers, they have to focus on certain students. They might not be able to put their attention and work into other students if there's students in the class that are causing problems, or exceptional students in the class that always raise their hand and then always participate, and then other students might not get the chance to have the same education quality, and then students might not want to ask for help, and they might not feel close and connected or trust their teacher in order to reach out if there are personal problems, or if they're having problems in the school classroom with bullying or just homework help or something like that. So just how teachers are engaging the students in the classroom is a big something that we should look into to see how, especially at the younger ages, that this not be able to participate might cause psychological problems in the future. So just looking into this to see how all students can be successful in their classroom, even if the sizes are larger, and how every student can be engaged with their teacher, with the other students in the class, to create a great environment for their students. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Lynn. Thank you, Ms. Lynn. Ms. Valancourt?
I just want to thank you for, Mrs. DeLacy, for your comment, and remind us, if you can come up with some vocabulary that is preferable, I just don't want to forget to ask you later. So maybe we should, if you could, there must be some preferable vocabulary, and I would like some help with that if you...
Can I respond to that? I just think that they're just words that we know that are negative kinds of words that we should be careful of. I don't have a urban vocabulary for it. I just think that we have to be mindful of what we're saying and how we say it.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
gentlemen. Okay, are
we letting the secondary level off the hook? Look at them sitting over there.
Okay. Well, next we have on our agenda.
Happy holidays.
Excuse me. Oh. Wow.
Oh, no, that's too much. Oh, no.
I needed that before. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mr.
God, you
Gist.
give me a migraine.
Oh, all right. Next, we're moving on to the program agenda, Digital Education with Mrs. Langford Brown. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm just setting up.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, we're blinded, temporarily blinded for a minute. Actually, I like the writer. Yeah. I'll just pay attention next time.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here to share a little bit about our digital education program. We have three overarching agendas for the presentation this afternoon. First is to give a detailed description of the different types of digital learning opportunities that we have in Howard County. With that, we also want to give you some feedback from the different users that participate in any one of the digital learning opportunities, including that of students, teachers, and school-based administrators. We want to conclude by talking about our vision for moving forward with our digital learning opportunities, some of the things that we think are critical as we move forward and how we will do that work. I'm going to turn it over to the coordinator for our digital education programs, Mr. Bob Cole.
Thank you, Ebony. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Digital Education Program has been expanding options for students since it was approved by the Board of Education in the fall of 2012. Over the past 3 years, approximately 1,400 students have benefited from increased access to digital content and courses in ways that were previously unavailable. Technologies such as web and video conferencing, as well as learning management systems, have expanded access to learning beyond the classroom and the school day. The work of digital education is grounded in the goals, outcomes, and strategies of Vision 2018, fulfilling the promise of preparation. Digital education assists in providing equitable access to instructional and professional learning, resources, and leverages technology to access and personalize the learning experience. Personalized learning aims to maximize the achievement of every student based on their demonstrated strengths and needs, as well as their interest and long-term goals. Personalized learning removes barriers based on time, location, pace, and delivery. Digital education is designed to provide supplemental access to courses. This graphic shows the continuum of models used to deliver instruction from face-to-face on the left to fully online on the right. Both the technology-infused classroom and synchronous video courses are face-to-face models, but different in the technologies used to deliver instruction. Blended courses are a combination of face-to-face and online instruction. And in contrast to the synchronous and blended learning models, where instruction takes place in real time, or the teacher of record is located in the school building, our fully online courses show the teacher of record remote, not in the physical school. There are 4 course components that can be used to describe courses under any of the digital education program models. The credit option indicates if the course is taken for original credit or credit recovery. Original credit courses are taken by students for the first time and are credit bearing. Where credit recovery refers to during or beyond the school day program that gives students who have failed a class the opportunity to redo coursework and thereby avoid failure and earn academic credit. The delivery model indicates if the instruction takes place in real time, which is synchronous, not in real time, which is asynchronous, or a combination of the two, which is blended. Time indicates when the student would access the course, and location indicates where the student would access the course. Courses under each of the digital education program models have been developed with particular combinations of these attributes based on best practice, current policy, and allocation of resources. The next section summarizes each of the 4 program models with examples. The most prevalent use of digital content is in classrooms where a teacher or district-developed digital content is used to augment traditional courses, with the teacher located at the physical school. This model leverages the talent of our HCPSS teachers with technologies that extend their instructional reach to personalize instruction at any time or pace. Two examples include a redesign of grade 6 Spanish to include differentiated activities for students based on their world language proficiency. The second example shows content from a third-party provider, Apex Learning, that is being used to provide remediation and reteaching in English 9 seminar, as well as special education tutorial classes. Our synchronous video courses are another model that are delivered in real time. However, instruction extends beyond the face-to-face classroom. A video camera is set up at the primary school site, and instruction is streamed to remote school sites across the HCPSS. Synchronous classes are recorded, which allows students to review sections of a class for clarification or practice, or a full recording in the case of absence. In addition to AP US History, Chinese, and differential equations, Dr. Maddie Hallbach delivered live instruction to students in American government classes from the ARL during their financial literacy unit. Our blended courses involve leveraging both face-to-face and online instruction to afford each student more personalized learning experience, including increased student control over the time, place, and pace of learning. Our blended courses implemented during summer school have since expanded to provide more course options during the school year and now include health, fitness, and CTE course options. Our credit recovery is another blended model that's used to provide more time and academic support on the topics where the student has not yet demonstrated proficiency. Teachers use diagnostic assessment, individualized and small group instruction, and digital content to create a personalized approach to addressing skill gaps and reteaching concepts to eventually achieve mastery. Our fully online courses show the teacher of record remote, not in the physical school. These students access the majority of instructional materials through online coursework at any time from any location. Courses are asynchronous, with the majority of communication with the online teacher occurring through phone, web, or video conferencing. Our 2016-17 catalog of approved high school courses includes 45 MSDE-approved fully online course options. Schools are providing access to these courses when the course is not offered at the school. There's a schedule conflict preventing the student from taking it when it is offered. Sometimes we have administrative placement or students seeking academic acceleration. Next, we're going to look at digital education program data. The figures provide a baseline of information to help support existing program models and plan for future growth. It should be noted that some data sets are incomplete, as data reporting rules and processes have evolved since our initial pilot group. When looking at enrollment by credit type, in school year 2013-14 to the present, original credit enrollments have increased 68%, while our credit recovery enrollments have decreased slightly. Current school year enrollments through November 1st show original credit enrollments have outpaced those in school year 13-14 and are projected to exceed school year 14-15. Original credit enrollments are continue to make up a larger percentage of our total enrollment. When looking at enrollment by credit type for our summer sessions, we see a similar growth trend. Original credit students enrolled during comprehensive summer school have increased 144% since our baseline year, and credit recovery enrollments have increased 148%. When we look at how credit type break down by major subject areas, social studies and English make up the bulk of our credit recovery enrollments. Core subject areas of world language, mathematics, and English make up our top 3 enrollment groups for original credit courses. World language enrollments have seen the greatest increase from school year 13-14 to present, with over 400% growth. It's important to note that the data only includes our core academic courses, as digital alternatives for electives are not currently available to Howard County students. When we look at enrollment by course model, synchronous video, blended, and fully online, they show growth in all areas. In some cases, enrollments have doubled, with blended courses seeing the greatest increase from summer 2013 to the present. Both our video and blended courses saw growth due to an increase in the number of courses offered during summer school, as well as the addition of our 3 new synchronous video courses. Last, we'll look at credit recovery completion. Digital education defines credit recovery as students who have successfully complete a course, or we define completion as a student who successfully completes the course with a D or higher. Students who earn a final grade of F or who are coded as a withdrawal are not included in completion rate. For school year 14 and 15, 99 students successfully completed courses and earned credit, where 13% completed the course but did not recover the credit, and 6.5% of students withdrew from the course. They either did not meet their program's attendance requirement or stopped attending sessions. It's worth noting that our credit recovery courses are rigorous and student grades are similar to a normal grade distribution found in most face-to-face classrooms. Now that we've provided the framework for course attributes, program models, and program data, now let's hear from students, teachers, and schools who are being positively impacted by digital education. The first section of the clip will highlight the experience of Kylie, Emily, and Maddie. They're taking the Chinese 1 synchronous video course. The course had too few students to run at their home school, but they were able to join other remote students as a digital education course section. The next section of the clip will feature Karen and Dante. They participated in credit recovery at their school to keep them on track for graduation.
My thoughts about taking a world language class: at first, I thought it would be really challenging because having to learn a whole different language through a computer screen would be really hard because you're not having that one teacher time. But after doing it for a couple weeks, turns out to be really easy. I don't feel really disconnected with the class, and we're all kind of in to learn the language.
We do a lot of group work. Like, we make presentations with them through Google Docs so we can both work together, and then we also we call them through the video so we can communicate with them really well, and it's been good.
I'd say to come in open-minded. First day you expect oh my gosh, there's no way I'm gonna be able to learn anything. It's impossible. But if you have other classmates and you have a great teacher that is willing to help you through it, even though she's not face-to-face, I'm sure it's gonna be a very successful year.
Yep.
It's important for me to take credit recovery so that I can continue on afterwards taking the classes that I want to take. So it allows me to complete the things I want to complete in a way that's simple, efficient, fast, and pretty straightforward. I've definitely considered online colleges and stuff like that. My sister does that, and it seems to work pretty well for her. And I feel like in some ways they would be similar, definitely because it's all online. And I feel like if I do go in that direction, I'll have some experience with obviously credit recovery, and I feel like that'll definitely help looking back and saying, all right, this isn't too foreign to me.
It was very detailed. It had every unit on there, on the reviews and things like that. So if you took the time, invested the time in reviewing, it would just be easy. I would definitely say the responsibility and maintaining to keep up with it, because it's just a lot of work, but just being able to keep up with it. Be attending Full Sail University in Florida after high school, and just pursue my dreams.
Our next perspective is from Daniel Rosewag. Dan is the CTE instructional team leader at Reservoir High School, which received the 2014 Program Excellence Award for Maryland from the ITEEA. Dan will provide insights on being both a digital education teacher with foundations of technology, as well as an evening school administrator using the blended course model.
Thank you, Bob. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me this time to speak on behalf of the Digital Education Program. My name is Daniel Rosewag. I am currently the principal of evening school, a teacher at Reservoir High School, and a blended digital education course teacher for summer school. From an administrative perspective, in evening school and from experiences at my home school, having digital education as an option for students in unique situations or circumstances has certainly allowed opportunities for many students to find success. We would all like to see all of our students performing at the highest levels possible. And digital education offers an additional means for many of our students to open up room in their schedules in order to take more challenging courses or courses of interest. It can also provide additional avenues for success for some students to meet graduation requirements when they find themselves in these unique situations. Digital education offers a variety of options that encompass both curriculum and course style, original credit, credit recovery, scheduling conflict. Digital education helps students meet their needs and discover their own goals and aspirations. No matter the individual student or their reason for taking the digital education course, all students have the opportunity to receive an academic experience that is both engaging and rigorous. From a teaching perspective, as someone who has taught blended online courses, students are provided experiences and opportunities for peer collaboration, hands-on learning. They have access to new and unique resources and technologies. They are provided an atmosphere of independence that allows for self-discovery of both thought and process. Ultimately, students are held accountable to much the same extent that they would be in a regular face-to-face course. They're able to drive their own successes and achievements and are exposed to an academic delivery method that is quickly finding a place through all levels of education. A great example of a student that found interest and success through digital education will be one that I had 2 years ago. He was a sophomore, taking the Blended Foundations of Technology course with me during the summer, and this was, of course, in an effort to open up more room in his schedule for advanced level courses. He found great levels of success that summer, but he also found an area of interest that had been previously unidentified to him. He is now taking his third technology education course and is interested in pursuing a profession in engineering. Opportunities provided or available are often indicators of success, and digital education certainly allows for an increase of option and opportunity for both students and schools. While digital education may not be applicable for every student right now, it is certainly a valuable asset to our school system that should continue to grow and expand as it does through all levels of education. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Our final clip highlights our partnership with schools. Our school administrators, counselors, and support staff assist students in accessing digital education. Under the leadership of Marcy Leonard, Hammond High School has provided student access to synchronous video classes, blended learning, and fully online courses.
My thoughts about taking a world language class at first, I thought it would be really challenging because having to learn a whole different language.
Should have closed it. Thank you.
Digital education has been a godsend to our students in a number of different ways. For our students who are really looking to continue very advanced learning, we have students participating in the synchronous video program so that they can take things like differential equations. And we've been offered the opportunity, haven't had to use it yet, for upper level language courses as well. So for those classes where we don't have enough registration to be able to do the full face-to-face staffing, it's been a wonderful opportunity to allow students to continue to accelerate their education. The digital education program has allowed us to dramatically decrease the dropout rate at Hammond High School and increase the graduation rate. We have students who may have failed courses early on, whether that was in Howard County or in another school district, and who become discouraged because they believe they can't graduate with their peers due to the loss of credit. The digital education programs allow those students to see that they can catch up and graduate on time with their peers, and to watch those students over the last couple of years walk across the stage with their diploma in hand and their cap and gown, and that incredible pride that they have in earning their diploma, really because they've been able to engage with the credit recovery and original credit online courses, has just been amazing. Experience. This year, with the Canvas learning management system being implemented for all students, our digital ed students are much better prepared for how to engage with Canvas, and then they're also coming out of their experiences with Canvas much better prepared for their credit recovery and original credit online courses. And I have no doubt that as they move into their collegiate experience, they will be head and shoulders above other students because they will already know how to work through using a learning management system effectively as an educational tool. Our teachers who are working with supervising the extended school day credit recovery and original credit, the during the school day programs, and who are helping to facilitate the summer programs are coming back and using flipped classroom models and other aspects of the learning management system much more effectively because they see how they can leverage the online and digital education experiences for effective instruction, not just for the online learning courses, but also for their face-to-face instruction as well. So it's been this added bonus in terms of teacher professional learning on top of the benefit for the students.
There are 5 elements or drivers that impact the work of digital education. These include curriculum design and development, professional learning, technology systems, student support, and continuous improvement. Addressing each driver requires communication and collaboration across HCPSS schools and programs. In the next section, I will highlight opportunities to expand digital education over the short term and the long term. Digital education will continue to implement a rigorous review process of course design and course facilitation to ensure that students receive access to high-quality coursework. One growth opportunity is the continued expansion of course offerings for during school year and summer course instruction. In addition, we can assist students in all high schools in recovering credits needed to get them back on track toward earning a high school diploma. Digital education will continue to utilize our most valuable resource, our HCPSS teachers and staff. As the number of courses and enrollments increase, we must keep up with demand by training more teachers. School-based staff will be able to access resources to advise, support, and mentor digital education students as well. Additionally, we can leverage the strengths of blended learning to develop personalized professional learning for HCPSS staff. Providing face-to-face interactions and the flexibility of accessing digital content with the staff member controlling the time, the place, and the pace of learning yields just-in-time support and opportunities for deeper learning and reflection. Digital education will continue to partner with our technology department and purchasing office to identify technology devices and video conferencing that support real-time collaboration through audio and video. It is critical that these applications are scalable and can be used throughout the school system. In addition, curricular programs continue to develop digital content and integrate third-party tools in Canvas to create new course offerings. Digital education will continue to develop and implement onboarding resources for our students prior to enrolling in a digital education course. Providing support is a critical step toward increasing student retention, engagement, and achieving learning mastery. Enhanced progress reporting throughout the courses will provide targeted feedback for the student and could be viewed by parents and school-based staff as well. And of course, student surveys will collect information to refine orientation and support material. Over the longer term, student support will introduce school-based mentoring and data reporting across courses to evaluate trends. Digital education will continue to evaluate what is working and identify areas of improvement. Policies and practices that were developed prior to the availability of digital education can be reviewed and updated. Continuous improvement tools are being used to define, measure, analyze, and improve current practices that are ineffective or inefficient. These improvements will not only benefit students, but also parents and school-based staff who support them. The Howard County Public School System's digital education program has grown from a comprehensive summer school pilot in 2013 to a multifaceted, personalized learning approach with nearly 400 students enrolled in original credit and credit recovery courses already this school year. In closing, I'd like to take a moment to ask those who have partnered with our digital education program to please stand in the audience to be recognized. I'd also like to recognize the work of our technical assistant, Ms. Jody Ihaz, who has been there from the beginning with digital education and keeps me in line and keeps the students enrolled and everyone happy. So thank you, Jody, for your tireless work. Lastly, I'd like to thank you, the board, for the opportunity to share our program with you and community members as well. And we welcome any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cole. Mrs. Valancourt?
I have several. One is, do we charge the students for the evening school classes and for the summer school classes that they take?
We do charge for summer school. I'm not aware of the charges for evening school.
Okay. Just
right.
asking.
Yeah, we're consistent with summer school.
Okay. And if the student is housebound for some reason or suspended, can they do these from home?
Yes, so some of the models that are either blended or fully online do allow students who are not physically present in a school building to access instruction. We have close partnerships with Home and Hospital, as well as Homewood Center and the evening school program. And we do have a number of students that fall within that category of administrative placement. And our goal with a lot of it is to provide continuity of instruction, because students may not be out an extended, a full year. They may be out for a month, and we try to provide the best continuity of instruction as possible.
Okay, so for the kids who might be accessing one of these programs from home, do we provide the equipment? Or do they have to have the equipment, or is there anything special that they have to do?
Right, so we do not provide devices to students to participate in digital education at all models. Some students, for example, in Home and Hospital, I'm aware that they may receive devices through the Home and Hospital program or through other means, but we do not provide devices to every student.
Okay. And if a student is taking extra classes, we don't charge during the school year, that we don't charge them for that either?
So for part of academic acceleration, the student will need to demonstrate that they are pursuing early graduation or dual enrollment. Otherwise, they may still elect to take an online class, but it would be at their cost.
And what's the cost?
It depends on the class and who's teaching it. Part of the process has to do with COMAR. And for Maryland COMAR, if a student's taking an online course, it has to be reviewed and approved by MSDE. So therefore, even if the student wants to take the online class, we help facilitate what is approved. The courses at their cost could be anywhere between $400 to $800 per class.
And do we have any kind of financial assistance for vulnerable populations?
Yeah, we currently don't have the same model that a program like Summer School has to evaluate documentation, so we work with the schools themselves. All of our enrollment requests come through the school, So when a request is made, the school counselor, administrator, or staff can identify those challenges, and we work with those.
Okay, thank you. I'll let someone else go.
Mrs. French?
A former board member, Brian Meshkin, used to talk about seat time as being passé, that now we should just look at how well the student has accomplished the goals and the outcomes required for the course. With your online courses, does your computer or your side log in, or you're able to monitor how long the student has actually logged into the program? Or is it strictly an assessment that they have to do? How do we determine success?
Right, so those are two different questions. The success criteria are developed with the actual assessments from that particular course, whatever that might be. As far as seat time goes, MSDE and the state do not track seat time or do not have a seat time requirement that other states might have for online learning. Depending on the program model, summer school, other blended courses have built-in face-to-face instruction. So there are a minimum number of hours that students are going to be meeting with a face-to-face teacher. For a fully online class, it varies. We do have within some of the systems, Canvas or Apex or other things that we're using, we have the ability to run reports on login time. But as you could see, you could log into your studies and you could, take a look over here at what's happening next to you and
You mean go down and have a snack?
Exactly. Yeah. So systems, they're only as intelligent as we
Right.
make them. You'll see in higher education lots of other levels of things like fingerprinting and, cameras and other things like that. I think at this point we're still looking at how the students are doing. We're asking parents and other school-based staff who are, supervising students. We check in with their progress reports and we can see if they haven't logged in a day or two. And so instead of counting up minutes, we look at how they're doing in the class, how frequently they're logging in, and conversing with the students to check on how they're doing.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Dr. Altwager?
I think this is great. Thank you. It was a great report, and I'm glad that we have these options for our students. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
My ears perked up when I heard that English and social studies have the highest percentage of credit recovery enrollment. And I'm just wondering if we have data on, thank you, data on what is the profile of the students who are taking that, because to me, my prediction would be it might be a high percentage of kids learning English as a second language. There's a lot of literacy, obviously, in English, but also in social studies. It's the most amount of reading you usually have to do. So I'm wondering if literacy is the issue there, and if it is, what are we doing to support those students?
So I'll address the second part of the question first. Within some of the software, Canvas, Apex, some other learning tools that we do have built-in reading supports for those. So just in the design of the classes, students report having more time to work with the reading passages or work in composing their writing. So outside of a traditional classroom that would require those to be done within a certain time frame, they are able to take more time to work with the material that they're looking at. So in essence, freeing up some of the time boundary has been helpful. The sites that have the site-based credit recovery are able to provide, other resources with students there during face-to-face sessions that they may not have as much access to during their day. And then we also, again, within the software, sometimes passages can be read or they can be, they could be highlighted or marked up in different ways to work with.
So in terms of the profile of the student, we don't have that data outlined, but anecdotally, we do know that, as you said, a number of those students may be English language learners. We also have students who come from other systems who may have failed courses previously. And so the profile of that student really does matter in terms of when we can offer credit recovery. In some cases, it's not credit recovery using this model. In some cases, it's not a match for the student. For instance, there are some students that cannot work independently in this type of environment, and so counselors will not recommend it that way. They would require that there be more support for those students during the day. So the profile is very different. There are different reasons that students need to take credit recovery, and our aim is to provide the model that best works for them.
Just one other question. Are credit recovery students and original credit students in the same online courses at the same time?
Typically, they are not. Generally speaking, and there's a caveat to that because in the past, in summer school, we have had students in the same course section, but they work through the class differently. So credit recovery students do work with more diagnostic, to look at mastery of content that they are coming in with, versus students in original credit who have not engaged with the class at all.
So, all right, so they're usually not together.
Correct.
So there's no, okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, I think it's so amazing that all of these students have these wonderful opportunities to either gain credits back or take additional classes to supplement their coursework. So I know of a lot of students that are juniors who have maxed out all of their math credits. So they have taken like Calculus BC AP, and then they have also taken Statistics AP. So it's great to see that they can do differential equations in their senior year to get a fourth math credit in their high school to continue math for all 4 years. And at Howard High School last year, students who took Spanish 5 AP, Spanish Language and Culture at the school, they wanted to continue their Spanish and take the next Spanish 5 course, which is Spanish 5 AP Literature, but there was not enough students to create the class at Howard High School. And from the approved high school courses, I was wondering if we could add literature onto the approved high school courses in the future so that these students could take it at school instead of going to another online program to take literature AP Spanish. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. We're actually aware that there are some omissions from courses that might be available in face-to-face schools. And again, part of that goes back to part of what the state reviews and approved, and so now Howard County and districts are able to review classes and submit them back to the state for approval. So we do plan, and we are going through the list, looking at gaps. We're also looking at course request data to see where are the pockets, because again, sometimes each school, you might have a pocket of German 2 at this school that year, but not the following. So your point is very well taken, and we are looking at that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cole.
Thank you.
You certainly led this charge over the past 2 to 3 years in terms of moving us forward in digital education. How do we compare with, or I guess, let me go back up a minute with Ms. Lynn's question. So every course that we want to move forward has to be approved through MSDE?
Just if they are going to be offered as a fully online course, which is the fourth option.
So blended, we can develop our own?
Correct.
Okay.
And we currently do that, yes.
And so moving forward, I really think it's great regarding, the professional development that you're moving forward with student support. How are you determining which courses to move forward with? What's the plan?
Right, so there are a few things at play. I did mention that we're looking at course request data. Previously, we did not have direct access to that until a master schedule was finalized. So we've been working with the student information team to identify how we can capture that data going through scheduling this school year. So we will, moving forward, be able to look at where course requests are coming from. We also meet with curriculum staff to identify their own development priorities. In speaking with their own ITLs and staff and parents within their community, they're usually able to come in and say, we haven't been able to offer AP US History, and that's how those requests are identified. So we are balancing course request data from the school as well as priorities identified by curriculum staff to look at which areas they continue to branch out into.
And how long does it take to develop a course? Like, does it vary or?
It does vary. Part of it is based on materials that we may already have access to. So in the case of something like computer science, we have some curriculum from code.org that we've adopted as part of the contract with Exploring Computer Science. So in that situation, we'd be layering materials on top of what already exists. And in other cases, we would actually be building from scratch. So the timeline and the types of resources vary based on how we intend to offer it.
And how do we compare with other counties in the state regarding digital learning?
Right, so what's interesting is it's a hard question to answer because of all the different enrollment types, fully online enrollments are really the only number that are tracked consistently across counties. So if you were to ask about, how many students are taking blended learning or credit recovery, those figures aren't very accurate or tracked very well across systems. So the only comparable number that we have currently would be fully online enrollments only. Our philosophy has been a little bit different. When you look at the first option, the technology infused classroom, we're actually opening up digital content to all teachers and not just focusing on offering online classes to students for acceleration at high school. So it might be hard to compare a district who might have an online high school program to one that's providing digital content and trying to expand that for students in all the classrooms. So we're kind of taking the approach of doing both. We want to have digital content available to each classroom as well as specialty classes for students that need those.
Right, I think the blended model is the best in terms of still having that sort of face-to-face connection with
Yes.
the teacher. And thank you, a lot of us saw the Chinese demonstration over at Reservoir High School, and that was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Giles? Okay, I have a couple of questions. When you're looking at the enrollment for this year and it's saying year to date, is that because we have a mix of semester versus full year opportunities and some kids may be involved in multiple, or especially because of the dual enrollments with the universities on a semester model that changes what we look at in terms of simply 2 summer school sessions or whatever? Is that part of why we're looking at a change in how we're who has opportunities and what do those look
Sure.
like and everything?
That's part of it. There are also pieces, for example, some school sites will offer credit recovery as 2 sessions. They'll
Okay.
run a fall and a spring. And we also will have students who transfer in throughout the year who may not have had the requirement for a class at their previous school or school system or state that now have that requirement here. And so the number doesn't jump considerably, but there is an appreciable difference. Sure. So we used November 1st as our date for this year's data.
Okay, because
the
I think
report.
it's important to understand that what that means that there are actually more options available to students. It doesn't mean you're taking this online course in replacement for this. You
Yes.
may take this as a supplement to
Correct.
something, and especially that credit recovery doesn't necessarily have to be another full year. There can be a way in which a student can make that up within a 2-month, a 2 to 3 month period, which allows them to get back on track with where they need to be at the other time. So to me, that's an important distinction in terms of how these classes are offered and what opportunities are provided to students. And in the same way that you talk about making sure that you've put the right staff in place and provided them with the resources to be able to instruct or support these classes, I think we also have to recognize that this is a valuable way in which all of our teachers can gain access to additional professional development and to increase their skills and the ability to interact with their students in a technology-infused classroom, as well as in support of something that's a little more intensive. All of these opportunities are, great doorways to acquiring additional skills and flexibility and familiarity with what is essentially now a blended world.
Yes.
So I think it's great that we're making these available, and I think we should be also looking at how we've used this to increase opportunities for our teachers to just improve their basic skill set in order to interact with a digital native population. So it's very exciting to see how this has changed, and I have some experience with the college level courses and the dual enrollment pieces, but I wasn't sure exactly how the credit recovery pieces were working, so it's really nice to be able to get a better handle on that and the ability to bring a child into the right place, because it also makes it available for somebody who maybe didn't fail the class, but has the opportunity to up the ante a little bit so that as they move to the next progressive level, they're better prepared to do that without necessarily going back and doing the entire course, but an idea of how they could improve. And so all of those things are valuable for the students. So thank you. We've seen lots of growth in this area, and it's very exciting.
Thank you.
Mr. Lacy? Thank you.
Getting back to the students who are failing the social studies and English, I remember back in the day when I taught middle school, we would have particular teachers that would fail a lot of kids, especially in their 9th grade year in English and in social studies, and those are required, as we whisper to each other, those are required courses. Now and I understand the literacy thing, and piggybacking on what you were saying as well, Mrs. Giles, students are learning in different ways. It's not stand and deliver anymore. So I wonder, have you looked and tracked exactly where these students are failing the courses? What schools, where are they coming from? Because I would think, too, that the math courses are required now as well. So you would think that as many kids would fail math, when you think about it, do you know why they are failing social studies? Where are they? Yes, the profile, but what kinds, how is the information being delivered to the students?
Right, so we do not track that. And I want to just go back and also make sure we're not misrepresenting that we do not have students in math and other subjects that are in credit recovery. Currently, the way credit recovery is structured at the school is schools develop an idea of what classes are of the highest need, and they prioritize those needs, and they're using academic intervention as part of their after-school program. There are cadres of students who may not stay for after-school credit recovery, but might be in a program during the day where they might be working on English or math or another subject that they haven't been successful in. So what typically a school would do if they had, 5 or 6 students in U.S. history for credit recovery, the first piece that we work with is doing diagnostic on, where they're struggling. And so they look at all of the topics through the course and they go through and then identify areas that they need to work through. So a lot of the diagnostic at this point from our program perspective is looking at students when they're coming into credit recovery. I don't have a tool available at this time to look at while they were taking the class the first time in the classroom where they may have struggled.
That's not my question. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I could be. You said that the highest numbers of children or students who are in the credit recovery are taking courses, they're recovering classes in social studies and English, right?
Right, but that's based on a school decision. That doesn't indicate that that's the highest number of students failing the classes throughout the county. That's based on the need of that particular school for that particular class.
So what
I
it
don't
doesn't-
think I'm getting it. Go ahead.
So there may be as many students struggling with mathematics in a particular school, but in terms of using this particular model, they need to prioritize which
Course they need.
course they need to use this model. So they may be working with the students with difficulties with mathematics or needing more coursework in mathematics a different way. So the way that more of our schools are choosing to manage social studies and the English language arts appears by the data to be through this model. But that does not mean that they don't have some of the same challenges with mathematics. It's just not using this model for students to recover those credits.
Okay, and so when they're taking the courses, how they're structured in a way so that the students they're blended learning, right?
Yes.
And so, but they are using manipulatives, is it multiple intelligences, or is it, how is the course structured?
Right, so they're using a variety of tools. Some would be the similar tools that they would use in the classroom, and others are available to them at home because they are online.
Okay.
So they include a variety of things like simulation or manipulatives, like you said, hands-on. Dan talked a little bit about with his Foundations of Technology. Those students in that face-to-face session, they're still completing some of the same hands-on tasks that they otherwise would do in the classroom. So they're getting a similar experience through blended that they may not have in a fully online setting. And so you will see that the way that we teach facilitators is to be very purposeful in how they structure their face-to-face classes, and that every face-to-face class has some period of time where they do one-on-one conferencing. Then they have a period of time where they will do either small or whole group instruction, and then other periods of time where there might be independent work. So it is not sitting in the computer lab for 2 hours with a lab monitor. Instead, it is individualized.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. And I'd just like to add that 3 years ago, we didn't have any of this until I know that's one of the things that I wanted so much, was to make sure that we had opportunities for students to learn in different ways. So we've come a long way. And I'd just like to say to Rachel, I always appreciate so much the perspective that you add. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I thank you very much, Mrs. Langwood Brown and Mr. Cole. We really appreciate your report.
Thank you.
Very informative. Okay, so we're going to move into the participation in performance and advanced placement courses and exams with Ms. Chesney and Dr. Stout.
Do you need audio? Do you need audio?
No, we don't.
Okay, I'm going to leave it unplugged then.
All right, friend. You ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, sure. Am I doing it, Tom?
You're up first.
Hey, are you okay to describe the last slide too? Where it talks about, the last one talks about the AP honor roll, what that means. Okay, the percents and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, good evening. Okay, there we are. So Ms. Chesney and I are going to be talking about AP participation and also a little bit about the AP program in the county. So we'll start with that, with a little background information. about how we do advanced placement and what that program looks like here. So it's a big part of our system philosophy, and Dr. Foos has talked a lot about the vision of having all students attempt an AP course before they graduate from high school. And one of the premises behind that is the fact that students who take an AP course in high school have proven to be more successful in college. Even the students who don't necessarily take the test, but who sit in the class for an entire year. I'm not going to talk about everything on the slides. I'm going to highlight a few things. These are the AP courses that we offer. We have currently 35 exams, and that's almost all of them. There are a few classes that are being added. You'll see science looks a little strange, and that's because those courses were added last year to the AP program, but we are offering them for the first time this year. So we actually are offering 7 different science classes this year. This is a list of the exams by popularity. These are the numbers of students who take the exams, and we have a pretty good mix up there, as you can see. Some of the courses are actually the advanced level options for that grade level. So those courses, English Language and Composition, which is grade 11, that's the advanced option or GT option for students. So the same is true for U.S. government, politics, and world history in social studies. So AP is changing actually quite a bit, and there's some significant changes taking place. I'm going to focus on a few that are really significant for this year, but you'll see similar changes over the next few years. All of the history courses are currently undergoing a dramatic revision with a greater focus on historical thinking skills and literacy. Greater teacher discretion in terms of content. For those of you who may be familiar with past AP courses, it was a march through content. And teachers were struggling to keep up the pace and make sure the kids got all the information they needed. There's still a lot of content, obviously. These are content-rich courses, but what's changed is that there's greater teacher discretion in terms of the content they teach for a particular time period. So they don't have to teach every single thing that's on the list necessarily. They can pick one that's significant. And one of the reasons behind that is because the students are asked to apply their understanding of these historical thinking skills to a greater extent than they have been in the past. So when we see AP Art History, same kinds of things, greater focus on particular skills, different skills in art history, obviously, than in history, but and a more streamlined curriculum and greater teacher discretion. Some of the biggest changes actually are taking place right now in our science and computer science courses. For physics, for example, there are now two new physics courses in which the students really need Algebra 1 and 2 as a requirement. In the past, they needed more advanced mathematics classes in order to participate in the physics classes. So there are different levels of physics now, physics that require only algebra and physics that require higher level mathematics. So it opens up to a lot more students, essentially. We have done a lot of things to increase enrollment. I'm going to focus on just one to give you a sense of what we're trying to do with AP Potential. AP Potential is a data point gleaned from the PSAT that all of our students take in grades 10 and 11. And what that provides the schools is a list of students who are likely to be successful on the AP exam, and it gets very specific, like individual exams. So students or schools know which students might have the potential. Again, it's the potential to be successful in these classes, and then they can be targeted. Some schools send letters home with the AP Potential scores to the parents so that they can actually see the courses for which their students are slated or have the potential to be successful in. And other schools do it a lot in terms of recommending students, reaching out to students. So that's a really important data point for us. And I know that Dr. Massell has worked, I don't know if she's still here, has worked with the high schools this year quite a bit on AP Potential and some other AP strategies. Here I'm going to focus on the fourth bullet, which is the fee waiver program. So we have a large grant that the state manages that provides financial assistance for families for students taking AP classes. The fee waiver program has been around for a long time. I just wanted to point out the growth we've had. So we went from 500 in 2014 to 800 scholarships last year. And a lot of that has to do with the communication we've done through our AP coordinators in the school and also our principals reaching out and making sure families are aware of this opportunity for our students. And another thing that we've focused on centrally has been AP vertical articulation. That's a very fancy word. What it basically means is that we're doing things to prepare kids at younger grades for the skills they need to be successful in AP classes. So we're actually starting in middle school. We started a project last year with AP vertical articulation at Thomas Viaduct, developing some guides across 4 content areas for the schools, looking at what kinds of things we need to do early to prepare kids for the kind of rigor they'll see in these classes. This is also something we do at our high schools at a kind of a different level, and we're working with a lot of high schools this year on this particular topic. I manage the AP test coordinators. These are the people in the schools who actually register the students, arrange for the test sites, and make sure that the school follows the very strict requirements from the College Board for delivering these exams. So there are a lot of things they have to be aware of. There are seating arrangements and the distance between the students and the amount of technology they are not allowed to bring in, and it really depends on the test. So they do a lot. It's a really important role that they play in the schools. So one of the things we focused on, and Dr. Masella and I have talked about, are ways to share best practices, like what are schools doing that are having success. We're looking at schools within the county and outside the county who are doing things to increase enrollment and sharing those with the schools in terms of the best practices. This is the system infrastructure, so I'm the coordinator for advanced placement, and my basic role is managing those school-based coordinators, but also serving as a contact person for the coordinators of curriculum as well as for the College Board. The curriculum coordinators are really the ones who drive the support in terms of the content, professional development for teachers, and supplying the resources the schools need. It's very content specific, obviously. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Chesney, or Ms. Chesney, to talk about the AP participation and performance data.
Okay, on the first slide, what we're going to do is compare our performance to Maryland public school students and to students throughout the nation who attend public schools. So overall, we are 20 percentage points greater than the state of Maryland or public school students in Maryland performance on exams, scoring a 3 or higher on AP exams. And 25 percentage points greater than the nation as a whole. When we compare our Asian students, 83% of our students who take exams earn a 3 or higher, compared to the state, which has 73%, and the nation at 67%. Our African American students, as far as those tests are concerned, 65% earn a 3 or higher. You do, but it's the next slide, I believe. You'll be good.
It's buried in charts. It's not pretty like that.
It's on the PowerPoint. 15 or 16? Okay. So when we compare our African American student performance to the state, we are score 31 percentage points greater, and the nation is 36 percentage points greater. Our performance of our Hispanic students, 78% of the exams earn a score of 3 or higher, compared to the state, which is 52, and the nation, which is 40. We look at our white students, 82% of those exams earn a 3 or higher, compared to 68% in the state and 62% in the nation. Okay. The next slide, what we're really looking at here are achievement gaps. So when you look at HCPSS compared to Maryland and the nation, our achievement gap between African Americans and whites is about 17 percentage points. Our gaps between the Hispanics and Asian students is 6 percentage points, and pretty flat as far as white students are concerned. When you look at the state of Maryland, you look at the achievement gap between Asians and African Americans, it is 39 percentage points and 21 percentage points between Asians and Hispanics, and 5 percentage points between Asians and whites. When you look at the nation as a whole, you look at the achievement gaps between Asians and African Americans, it's 38 percentage points. Asians and Hispanics is 27 percentage points. and about 5 percentage point gap between Asians and whites. So you can see where our achievement gaps are not as great. We still have achievement gaps, but they're not as significant as the state or the nation as a whole. Okay, this next slide, we're looking at AP test takers for 2005, between 2011 and 2015. So there's been a change of 793 exams, or a 21.5% increase, which is pretty amazing over that short period of time. A one-year increase of 4.5% from 4,287 exams to 4,481 exams, or test takers. When we look at exams taken, we've moved from 7,895 exams in 2011 to 9,920 in 2015, a change of 2,025 exams, or an increase of more than 25%. The one-year change is 250 exams, or 4.8% increase. If we look at exam performance between 2011 and 2015, it's very flat as far as the percentage of students scoring a 3 or higher, which is great considering we've had a 25% increase in the number of exams that were taken. Here we're looking at AP test takers for 2014 and 15 by race ethnicity. For all students, we have a 4.5 percentage point a 4.5% increase. We had the greatest increase for Hispanics, which showed a 25% increase in the number of test takers.
May I interrupt a minute?
Sure.
Could you correlate your PowerPoint to the table in our document so that if we can write notes of what you're saying next to it? If that's possible or not?
Okay.
No? I'm sorry.
So
Then
Table
that's okay.
4 contains a lot of the information, and also, as far as the board report is concerned, we provided one in August with similar data, as well as at the end of November. But Table 4 has a lot of the information that's here, that's in this
Thank you.
PowerPoint. Okay, if you are looking at this particular slide here, we're looking at exam performance by race ethnicity. And highlight some of the changes. Why we might see some drops as far as the percentage of exams scoring a 3 or higher. What we do see is great increases overall. So for African Americans, it's a 12.3% increase in the number of exams scoring a 3 or higher, and for Hispanics, it's 26.4% increase from the prior year. This particular slide, what we're looking at is exam scores by subject. On the left-hand side, you see the exam name. On the far right-hand side, you see the percentage of exams earning a 3 or higher. So if we look at English language and composition, we administered over 1,000 exams, and more than 83% of those exams earned a score of 3 or higher. You can see the distribution of scores up there. On the far left-hand side in red are the 5s. The lighter color red are the 4s. The light green are the 3s. Darker green are the 4s. And the darkest green are the number of exams earning a score of 5, or the percentage of exams earning a 5. You can see for Calculus BC, more than 96% of those exams are earning a score of 3 or higher, and there were more than 500 exams administered. And for Calculus AB, there were over 1,000 exams administered, with 83% of those earning a 3 or higher. This is AP course participation for our graduates for 2014-15. What we see here is an overall 2 percentage point increase from 2014 to 2015 as far as graduates participating at least one AP course.
Our largest gains were for Hispanics, who showed an 8 percentage point gain, and for students of 2 or more races, who showed an 11 percentage point gain. The next one is exam participation, so the percentage of graduates who took at least one exam. Here we see that we were pretty flat, 53% of 2014 graduates compared to 54% of 2015 graduates. Greatest increase was for Hispanics with a 9 percentage point increase, and for 2 or more races that had 11 percentage point increase. The next slide is the percentage of exams that earned a 3 or higher, so at least one exam that earned a 3 or higher. So for our graduates, 45% in 2014 compared to 46% in 2015. With Asians from 64 to 68, our largest increases were for Hispanics with a 10 percentage point increase, and for 2 or more races with a 9 percentage point increase.
And this is the last slide. This is actually the fourth time we've received this district roll honor, and the AP district roll honor really goes to those school systems that show improvement both in the number of test takers and either improvements in scores or steady scores. So very proud of that. And with that, we are finished with the presentation and can answer questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Altwager.
I didn't think I'd be first, but
Everyone else is hungry.
a couple of things. The first one's a little bit not very specific, just a general concern or comment, and that is that at the college level, I know that there's a trend to not accept AP courses in place of regular college courses because a lot of universities and colleges just don't feel that they're equivalent. That's not something we can do anything about, but here's my concern, is that I want to make sure that our kids are getting an advanced course that develops their thinking, their critical thinking, expands their knowledge base, challenges them, stretches them, whether or not they intend to take the AP exam. And when we place so much emphasis on the exam versus, and whether the child has a good potential to pass the exam, we may be missing kids that have potential to stretch themselves and learn more, but aren't, that end up not taking the courses because of that AP exam hanging over their heads and being considered when the kids are being recommended to AP courses. And that's just a general concern. And I know that a lot of kids take AP classes because it puts them further along in their college program if they have some credits under their belt. But what about the kids who don't intend to go to college or are not taking the AP classes for that purpose? I want to see that our kids are challenged and have an opportunity to be in these classes, whether or not they ultimately are going to take that exam or are likely to pass that exam.
Well,
So I don't know if
there's
you
no
want to.
requirement to take
I
the
have
exam.
another.
There's no requirement, just to
Right.
clarify, there's no requirement that the students take the exam. It's
Right.
encouraged.
Right, except that what I heard was that PSAT scores are used by some schools or by some faculty. I'm sorry?
That's because everyone takes them.
Yes, I know. But I don't want that to be the end-all to recommending a child for, because people are thinking the AP exam. I know they are. They're worried about we don't want to put kids into an AP class unless they have a high likelihood of passing the AP exam. That doesn't look good for us. It doesn't look, whatever. I just want to guard against that happening.
A couple of things. One, we use points for identifying students
to participate in an AP course, so it's just not the PSAT that's used. However, using AP Potential has dramatically increased our participation specifically for African American and Hispanic students. And it also takes out some of that judgment. So we look at AP Potential, we look at other data points, and if students are showing they have AP Potential and aren't being identified for higher level courses, then that's also a conversation at the school level. So you saw from some of the slides that I had shown that we've had a 25% increase in the number of students who are participating. So that says a lot about what we're doing as a school system to support all students, and also looking at the achievement gaps between our Asians, whites, African Americans, and Hispanics compared to the state and the nation as a whole. So,
Well, actually, that takes me to my next point, which is actually a concern.
Dr. Allweger, can I just let you know I just want to let you know that we're going to start the public forum promptly at 7:30, and there's a line of people to speak after you. Just, I'm
Okay,
not
I'll
rushing
try to
you,
be
but I'm
very
just
brief.
saying. Okay,
I'm
thanks.
very concerned because some of the data, like in Table 4 of our document, the percentages that are being presented are not these are not the, let's say, take the African American kids. It's not the percentage of all African American kids that take the exam, it's the percentage of all the kids who are in AP that are African American. And when you get to slides 23 and 25, you see a much bigger disparity when only, I think, 22 or 25% of all the African American kids are taking AP classes. That is really low. It's very concerning.
44%
So
of
if you get-
African Americans are taking at least one course, or enrolled in at least.
44% of the kids taking the AP exam are African American.
At least
Go to
44%
that.
of African American graduates have taken at least one AP course. Not all graduates take an exam, or not all students who take a course take the corresponding exam or take an exam.
Okay, if you look on slide, I don't want to take the time up, but on slides 23 and 25, I saw that we had in the 20s for African American kids.
As far as exam
Is that right?
participation for
Right,
graduates.
exam
right.
participation.
But not course participation.
Not, all right, but still the disparity is much
Correct.
greater.
I agree.
And I just think we shouldn't, we need to pay attention to that. I'll stop there.
We are paying attention to that. That's part of the reason why we introduced some of the other AP Potential that they're talking about, to increase the number of students. We are paying attention to it, and we're making gains by doing that.
Okay, Mrs. DeLacy?
Yes. I know we're making gains. I'm looking at the elementary school model, which hopefully will assist greatly, because when I see where the kids are after they've finished a full year of pre-K, I can only imagine what's going to happen down the road. Number two, the calculus situation, where we're going to hope that by third grade, all children are going to be on grade level for math and for reading, so that they can move forward. But until then, I'm looking, to be honest with you, at Hammond High School, Long Reach High School, Oakland Mills High School, and Wild Lake. And I share your concern very much. And if you don't say it out loud, then you don't say it's an issue. And I'm looking at, I know when I go to Oakland Mills, I'm not seeing a ton of Asian kids. I know I'm seeing a lot of Black and African kids. And I'm looking at 51, all students. If you look at the population of students at Oakland Mills High School, and that's why we shouldn't do districts, because I'm always looking at Oakland Mills High School and Wild Lake, simply because that's in my Columbia area where I live. And I look at all the schools, but I know they have large numbers of African American kids. And a lot of times, if we didn't have the African and Caribbean kids there to prop up the scores, they'd look a heck of a lot worse. So I'm looking at the small numbers that are being reflected in those kids who are taking those courses. And I'm still walking into the classrooms, and I'm still in those schools that have they're overwhelmingly minority or an African American, then I'm seeing one maybe African American kid or black kid in the class and tons of kids who aren't. And it's not reflecting the population of the students. So I know that we're working very, very hard to change it. I know we are. But I would be remiss by not saying, what are we doing at our high schools to address this matter? Because this is not right. And to ignore it, and I know we're not ignoring it, and we get the data and we see 39 points differential between Asian kids and African American black kids. Now, does that mean that these kids are genetically smarter? Or does it mean that something is being lost? I know that we would be zillionaires if we knew the answer, but we certainly have to address and talk about it. So what are our remedies right now?
Multi-pronged. And what's the issue? The issue are expectations, a culture of low expectations for years that we're slowly changing. I don't know, from everybody.
Does it matter?
Okay?
They were low.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not for us to figure that out today, but it's a culture of low expectations. You've heard me talk about this 1,000 times. What are the things we're doing at Oakland Mills specifically? You know, that's where we put in the dual college as one thing, the elementary school model, specifically in those clusters. It's a pipeline that we have to grow. Changing a culture takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. We don't want to artificially put students in a course that they're not really ready for. We want to grow that mindset for our children so that they want to take these classes and they're prepared. And that preparation doesn't begin in high school. It begins in elementary school. And that's what we're doing. You're welcome.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it from us board members, yes? Yep, okay. Thank you, Dr. Stout.
Thank you.
Mrs. Chesney, thank you very much. We will be adjourned we are in recess, excuse me, sorry, in the dinner recess, and we will begin our public forum promptly at 7:30. Thank you.